Hey guys, my name's Max. Thanks for tuning in the channel. I have a good one planned out for you today. There's a ETF that I found that's really flying under the radar. Stick around, we're going to get right into the middle of it. This high yielder flies under the radar and it beats LFGY, but it also beats ULTY. All right, so we all know crypto, DeFi, they're hot lately. So I had LFGY in my portfolio until yesterday, and I very happily I had it in my portfolio. I love having exposure to the miners and to that part of the economy. I don't have any, I don't have a Bitcoin wallet with a bunch of Bitcoin in it. I mean, I'm a stock guy, but that LFGY or blocks, I mean, that's a way to get exposure to that part of the economy, especially if you want to have the option exposure. LFGY and blocks, for that matter, are doing a great job. Well, I missed one. There's another one out there that's doing a good job that I knew about, but I just kind of forgot about it. It's Sepy. Sepy's from our friends over at Rex. It's a stable made of Sepy. I've always liked Sepy. I'm wearing the Sepy shirt today. Sepy kind of started the industry of what I think maybe is the niche 15 stock, 10 to 20 stock hedge fund type ETF. Sepy did it. And my hedge funds may be a little generous, but, Sepy could switch funds in and out every quarter. Since then, they've got a little bit more sophisticated. We've seen ones like LFGY, ULTY, KQQQ, FEET, and 5E. We've seen all kinds of ones, but I would say possibly Sepy from our friends at Rex started this off. Anyway, this is Sepy. So this is the DeFi version of Sepy. All right, Sepy's based on AI and Sepy's based on DeFi and crypto. All right. So I don't know why I didn't consider Sepy yesterday when I rebalanced. I'm going to definitely look at it next time. Sepy's like having it's like having a cousin that goes to Stanford and earns an MBA. I mean, Sepy's serious. Look at Sepy. It beat LFGY, not by a little bit, not with dividends reinvested, but by a lot. And it was down less. It was only down 20%, whereas LFGY, nothing wrong with it. It was down 25%. And look at it against ULTY. Sepy beats ULTY. And once again, nothing wrong with ULTY. ULTY was down about 27, 28%. Sepy was only down 20%. I'm sorry. ULTY was only down 20%. Sepy was the one down 27%. We would expect that because ULTY is because of the collars, it's ultra safe. But Sepy is beating it. Sepy has caught it back on the way up. But yeah, Sepy did drop further. Then on this other chart, because it's a different time frame, Sepy was the one down 20%, whereas LFGY was down about 25% in the same time frame, but they had different start dates. But anyway, you can see Sepy's kind of it's a good performer. We never talk about it. So its inception date was December 12th, 2024. And that's really about the date that I started my model portfolio. I should have just bought Sepy. I think that's about the same date as when I initiated the model portfolio. Anyway, okay, so Sepy, they call it their crypto premium income. And we've seen other ones like this. What they do is they invest in stocks, but it's in companies that are in either DeFi, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or mining or some type of business. And they sell covered calls or covered call spreads on these things. And that's the business model. Blocks is doing the same thing. Blocks chooses similar companies. Blocks is from X funds. LFGY is from Yield Max. And then there's ULTY. ULTY is somewhat of a similar concept also. So, but the two that are the closest to each other in concept and in execution are Sepy from Rex the one we're talking about tonight, and LFGY. I love LFGY. I mean, and so we talk about LFGY a bunch. LFGY from YieldMax. And I pulled up the top 10 funds from both of them. So Sepy right now, their biggest holding is Riot. Well, LFGY is holding Riot blockchain also. Sepy's holding CleanSpark. LFGY is holding CleanSpark. Robinhood, they're both holding Robinhood. Robinhood is the second biggest holding for each of them. Not saying they're the same fund, but they're pretty much. I mean, they have 5 of the same 10 holdings, and their other holdings are in the same type of business. But it's an exciting time to be an investor and have exposure to these things. I mean, Mara does mining, anyway, it's awesome. It's awesome that cryptocurrencies have caught on and they're going mainstream and stuff. I remember 10 years ago when I was telling my buddies that, anyway, we don't need to talk about that. All right. So the difference between these funds, this just comes down to details. Sepy, what they do and what Rex does, and this is similar also to kind of what Curve does that's different than from what YieldMax. Sepy sells options in the monthly time frame. I pulled up all their trades, and all their options expire October 17th. And they're all out of the money, and they're all calls, single calls, not call spreads. Very just plain vanilla, but also a very effective strategy. They're selling out of the money options in the monthly time frame. It's a tried and true strategy. Same thing CEPI does, the same thing CEPQ does, the same thing a ton of other successful funds do. Now, LFGY, they do the weekly options. So now what you get with weekly is you get more yield, but also because of the more yield, it also adds to your volatility and risk. So generally, when you're selling longer term options, monthly and even quarterly strategies, those are better at catching NAV upside, or rather, they're really kind of less effective at capping your upside. But either which way you want to look at it, it's easier on the NAV, these types of strategies. So I would expect Sepy to do a little bit better on the NAV. If you're ultra worried about NAV, Sepy's probably more your pick than LFGY if you want something in this arena. But talk to your planner. There's other ones out here. Sepy's kind of like your, sophisticated private school educated brother. I mean, LFGY is your cousin that went to state. Sepy sips brandy. LFGY is chugging natty light. LFGY, it's not about finesse. It's just about trying to make a yield. Consequences be damned. Nothing wrong with it. Sepy is more of a measured approach and employs a more nuanced strategy. That's the monthly time frame. So here's a chart right here that I pulled up to show you. This is a 6-month total return of Sepy and some of their competitors. Right there, you can see that LFGY was the only one ahead of it. Now let's go look a little bit deeper into this stuff, and then I'm going to wrap this up and give you a conclusion. Okay, well, first of all, we can look at 1 month because we want to include blocks. And blocks has only been around for like 2 months, but blocks hasn't been around 6 months, so it's not apples to apples. Look at all of them on a 1 month basis. Of course, blocks is number one. Blocks is running away with it. They do the lightning spreads. I have a whole show about lightning spreads. It's coming out later, so be looking for that. But the other ones are doing well. LFGY is up 8% over a month. I mean, Sepy's up 8%. They're both up 8%. I mean, then we have the benchmark, SPY and ULTY. You're down here up about 3%. So, but that's over a month. Now, that's just a month. Let's go back 6 months. Now, blocks hasn't been around 6 months. It's still on here, but it's wherever it is, it's kind of deceptive. It finishes fourth, but I mean, anyway, But let's look and see what did happen. We have up here LFGY. Think about this, 6 month, and this is total return. It's 43% total return for the past 6 months. That's amazing. Okay, now that's yield max. And they sell the options. They also probably paid a bigger dividend than Sepy. But Sepy did well also. Sepy was up 35%. They sell the monthly options. Monthly options are generally easier on the NAV. And then we have ULTY. Look at ULTY was up 35.4%. Really, Sepy was tied with ULTY over the past 6 months. I mean, that's impressive because ULTY over the past 6 months, people talk about the strategy change and they talk about it just being when ULTY switched to weeklies. And no, that wasn't the strategy change. Strategy change happened mid-October of last year. Because I remember it distinctly, and that's when they switched to be able to do the callers. It's basically when they switched from to a caller fund. They were a covered call spread fund. They could do anything, but they mainly did covered calls spreads. But then they got beat up on a couple of them, and they switched. They switched the portfolio where their prospectus where they could do anything, but they just basically ever since that day have pretty much done callers or a lot of callers. You know, it's pretty much a caller fund now is what I would call ULTY. Anyway, all right. But forgetting about, let's just take blocks out of there since it has been around long enough. Okay, so looking at the ones that have been around long enough, LFGYs, you know, then we have Sepy, ULTY, and then SPY. But it's impressive that all of them are beating SPY, not just by a little bit, by a lot. And they always say these things don't get upside. I always say they don't get a lot of upside. They do get some upside. They have the potential to get some upside. And they don't beat the parent. And that's true. They usually don't beat the parent over an extended period of time, but it doesn't mean they can't or, you know, it's impossible. And they're all beating the parent over the 6 month time period. For what it's worth now, but also to be fair, let's look at it just price return and not total return. So we'll take out the dividends, and of course, SPY is still up. The SPY only pays like a 1% dividend, you know, so of course it's still up, but the bigger dividend ones aren't up. But even taking the dividend out of there, Sepy still up 9% for the past 6 months, just on NAV by itself. Not that, and you don't get it for that. That's not why you get it, you know, and I get that. But, and of course, ULTY's having a problem. But LFGY's up 3% just on NAV. And of course, ULTY's not going to, you know, ULTY's down 10% on NAV over the past 6 months. But anyway, that's not realistic. What is realistic is this number right here. Okay, so that is that. So what else do we have to look at? I believe I made a special max factor sheet right here, and I wanted to look at a few things on. So I made a max factor subset of the ones that we're talking about right now. Blocks. Well, I added Biddy though. I think Biddy's interesting. Anyway, Sepy, LFGY, and ULTY. But let's just look at Sepy's NAV went from $40.76 to $40.61. It dropped 16 cents. So it's down a third of a point. So, you know, but it paid a 40% yield. So that's pretty steady. But you look at some of their competition and look at LFGY, great fund, went from 41 to 36. So it dropped 12%. Now it paid about twice the yield, but something to consider. I'm trying to think. The max factor is based on a quarter. So this is based on the past quarter. I mean, you know, so consider that also. But blocks, look at blocks. It was at 21.74 90 days ago. Now it's at 24. Anyway, but Biddy's legit too. Biddy, uh, that any of these might work depending on what your needs are. And I think it's interesting that we have all these choices. Let's look over here. So this right here is just some of the numbers off the max factor, which I just showed you. This is just an infographic of those numbers. I can't say which one's better for you. Only you can say which one's better for you, you and your partner and your planner, CPA, whoever you talk to about this stuff. I would just say generally, if NAV is something that if you're ultra concerned about NAV, it's probably be better to be with somebody like Curve or Rex or JP Morgan rather than somebody like YieldMax. Not that there's anything wrong with YieldMax on total return. And when you're looking at it just on an unbiased way, like I do in my max factor sometimes lots of times the YieldMax way is ahead or one of the top strategies, but lots of times it comes at a cost of some extra volatility. So it's all about finding the investment that's right for you. With so many of these out there anymore, there's no excuse not to be able to find one that's right for you. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful night. All right, I'll talk to you later.